Hello friends, here with the Lonesome Gamer, and I'm still playing 7 Ages. On the last turn I've entered Age 2, and well, we've seen some changes. The Western Celts, they disappeared, so did the Amazons and the Nubians. Their players decided that they were simply not successful enough to hold on to them, so yeah, discarding them gives them new chances. The the Shu, they expanded here in China. They are now the biggest and also the most glorious empire in the world. And there's still a lot of conflict potential here in the Middle East. We got the Minoans, which are, by the way, Christian. We have the Egypt, the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, and the Sumerians. So on that pretty narrow space, we have 5 civilizations, 5 empires. This is definitely gonna stay interesting for a while. Okay, fine. So the gray player is pretty far ahead, but there is still a long time to play, so it's not over yet. And let's plan the next turn. And actually I decided to come up with another house rule. I thought about this during the day, and usually you get a penalty if you use a wild card marker, like the Egyptians did last turn. If you simply just play the marker, you won't go ahead in the progress track. And if you do the same action as another one of your empires did already in the same turn, then you lose a glory point. I decided that I will ignore this delay on the progress track. And there is a reason, because sometimes it can be actually very useful to move on, or not to move on. Simply because, for the Sumerians, an example, they had this artist, and this artist generated them an additional point for their buildings, for their artifacts. So, and the artist died because the Sumerians entered another age. So what they could have done is they could have simply played a wild card to keep the artist alive, because then they wouldn't have went on the progress track, and the artist would have stayed alive, and that's it. And in theory, they could have done that forever. And I think for once that kind of might slow down the game a little bit. It doesn't really feel thematic at all that you can kind of stop time or stop these guys from aging. So, I simply don't like that idea, and that's why I changed it. Overall, I think it's not so important for the game, but it might speed the game a little bit up, and yeah, you can avoid this kind of staying in the game, just staying in the same age. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, let's plan the next turn now. Okay, we did the planning, and we're going to see lots of new empires now, because we just entered a new age. Many people discarded their old empires, so this is exactly the time when we will see lots of new empires rising. Okay, so the pink player goes first, and he's gonna play the Melanesians. They would show up here in Papua, but now the yellow player says no way here. I'm going to play the shooting star. Play when a player starts an empire, it doesn't start, discard its card. Okay. And there is a reason for that. Because the yellow player, and it's now his turn, he wants to start the Polynesians. And they are not so far. They would have been not so far from the Melanesians. So there would have been definitely a competition here. And in this way, it seems much easier. So they have two possible starting locations. Luzon or Mindanao. So these are these two areas here. You can choose one of them. Starting age is 2 to 7. Setup is -6. They start with $12. Initial ships cost 4, but only the initial ones, only the one you buy now right at the beginning. Galley may enter oceans. Galleys may enter oceans. Well, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. Huh. That's great. Okay, so let's start these guys. I made a stupid mistake with the Polynesians. I should have waited one more turn before I start them because of their -6 setup. That means they end here at the progress level of 3. But that means, again, they cannot even afford galleys right now. And because they want to have a big fleet and want to control only, well, basically their sea, the sea, it doesn't help them a lot to buy any land units. So for now I'm going to only place one spear here, and I'm going to save the rest of the money. So I'm afraid I wasted a turn and also a little bit of money because I cannot buy any initial galleys, which would have been cheaper. And I have to do a production action with these guys in the next turn then. Okay, that wasn't that great. We see another starting empire action. These guys here, the red player, he starts a very strong empire. The Romans. He could also play the Huns. He wants to start them both. And I wonder if it makes more sense to start the Huns right now. Maybe that's even a better idea. Yeah, I think I'm going to start the Huns first. They can start in any steppe area. So steppe areas are these areas here. On the other hand, well, if he starts the Romans first, he would gain glory points right from the beginning. The Huns don't give them that. Yeah, so I think he will actually start the Romans first because they gain glory for their home country. The Huns don't. Okay. So they start in age 2 with a setup of -2. They gain a lot of starting money, $20. You can start with Caesar or Jesus. He can choose here. His initial infantry cost 1. Free maneuver after setup. +1 to swords frontline value. Gain 1 elite marker if you liberate lands this turn. Lose 1 elite each time a leader dies. That's pretty amazing. I'm not absolutely sure what that means, gain 1 elite marker if you liberate land this turn. I think it... Does that mean only in the first turn? Or also in the following turns? Because the +1 to swords frontline value probably counts for all turns. But there is this free maneuver after setup. Huh. I'm not sure about that. I might actually check that, but I don't know yet. Okay, so let's place these guys and let's start them. Okay, I think I'm gonna play gain 1 elite marker if you liberate lands per turn. I don't know, I think I'm gonna use that for each turn and not for... I mean, the following says lose 1 elite each time a leader dies. So, I don't know, I think it makes sense that way. Although I'm not sure about it. Damn it. I mean, on the other hand, it says this turn, initial infantry 1 free maneuver after setup. Maybe it is only for the first turn. I will check that later. Okay, let's see now. So he ended up with a big stack here. 20 bucks are a lot of money, and he only has to pay 1 for infantry. To pay 1 for, that is just amazingly strong. And now he has a free maneuver action. So first he's actually going to use his ship, his galley here, and move to Carthage. Then he's going to move, let me see, with 1 to Sicily, with the others here to Cisalpine, and okay, let me see, we have, now that was our first movement action. We have Caesar, he's a strategist. So that means you can activate, you can do another maneuver action after your first one. So I think well, I definitely will send these guys here. That is still my first maneuver action. Okay. Huh. Oops, damn it. Okay, Caesar, he moved here onto the Alps. He's also a tactician, so I think that makes sense for him. And now I wonder if I want to really move to Carthage, or maybe even better to Andalusia. And I think I'm going to move here because I want to be big, not in the world, but in Europe. So I think it makes more sense not to move here, but to move actually here. So now I control a lot of fertile areas, and we can spread out even further here into the north. So the Romans are extremely strong now, and they are now together with the Shang, with the Chu, I always mix them up. With the Chu, the Romans are now the biggest empire in the world. And that is just when they started. That is one of the real strong abilities of them. So this is an amazingly strong empire. Then we see the Parthians. Played by the green player. They start in Parthia which is here. And that is good for everybody because that will build up the pressure onto the gray player, especially onto Sumeria, which is a very, very glorious civilization. So they start with -4, also with 20 bucks, which is a lot. Initial cavalry costs 3, and they can build knights from progress 11, which is nearly an age earlier than usually it would be possible. Okay, actually the green player changed his plans. They're not going to start the Parthians right now, but the Irish first. The reason is the Parthians, they would start with a -4 setup modifier, which would bring them behind this light cavalry. So because my cavalry is cheaper, my initial cavalry, I want to wait one more progress, and then I can build this light cavalry as initial cavalry, which is definitely an advantage for me then. So let's start now with these guys. The Irish, they start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That just allows them to build ships, galleys. That's a good thing. And then they start with 12 bucks. Anything special? Ignore invasion modifier while invading during ages 2 and 3. But this is basically everything for now. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so here we have now the Irish, and that was then the end of the Start Empire phase. So what happens next? Well, we have the production phase, and the Phoenicians, they will produce. And I think that makes a lot of sense because there is a big danger now that they might actually be attacked either here from the Assyrians or even from the Minoans, although the risk is not that high there because the invasion modifier is definitely an issue here, and they only have, I think they only have 2 ships, so they probably don't want to risk that. But the Assyrians are definitely a threat here. So they got to produce. Okay, well they only have an income of 3. That means of 4, because they got a city, and then they have to pay 1 maintenance. And that means they only have 3 left, which would just allow them to buy a bowman. And this is it then. I mean, what I could also do is, I got a special ability, very special ability actually. If you give active empire 1 money for each of their units in an area you control, they must retreat before conflict in that area. So that's pretty cool, because just in case the Phoenician would do an attack, I could pay 2 bucks and then they have to retreat. So that's a good idea. Basically that's a cool ability. But on the other hand, you know, I also want to pose a threat to them. Here now their hometown is kind of exposed. So I wanna constantly oppose to these guys, so that there is always pressure on them from 2 sides, from the Egypt and also a little bit from the Phoenicians. So that's why I basically I use the Phoenicians only to build up pressure on these Assyrians, and not so much to gain points, because to gain points with them I better should start building ships and sailing the oceans. But this is not what I will do with these guys right now. I'm pretty sure about that. There are also the Minoans here. So I think for now I'm going to use them just to put some pressure on the Assyrians and on the grey player in general. Okay, the next production action is done by the Celts, and that's just amazing. Because they had the silver mine, they have 20 bucks. In addition, they would gain 8 bucks, but because it's a barbarian empire, they only gain 4, but they don't have to pay any maintenance. So they have now 24. That is really impressive. And they can now start buying units. Okay, the Celts could only buy or produce 4 units because they have only 4 spaces to place their units. So that's kind of sad. They got 13 bucks left. Yeah, well. Let's see. Then we have the Assyrians also doing a production action. They have an income of, it's not that amazing, of 6, 7, 8, and they have 4 units, so they have an income of 4. Let's see what kind of units they have. I guess I'm gonna probably simply buy 2, either 2 spear, if I find them, would be good. There is one here, and the other one is here. Yeah, that's fine. So I can place now one here, Palestine, and the other guy goes here to Syria. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is the end of the production phase then. And then we're going to see some trade in progress. The Sumerians. They want to be among the first concerning progress. So definitely makes sense for them to do some trading, because now the Minoans are actually number 1. So question is now who they want to trade with. They can choose someone that is adjacent or that is in range. They are now in age 2, so that means it can be 2 spaces away. So it could be, it cannot be the Assyrians, because it cannot be the same player. It could be the Phoenicians, that is possible, they are also in range. But they have a trade +1, so it's going to be hard to win that trade. Could be also here the Free State, that's also in range. And let's see, the Free State has a +0, and then we can see how many cards each one have. Well, the Free State has 3 cards, and on the other hand, the Phoenicians don't have any cards. I wonder how you can trade if you don't have a card, actually. I think that means you simply cannot trade. So that means that they probably have to trade with the Free State. Yeah, there is no other choice. So, and if you trade with the deck, it's actually pretty simple. You play a card, you draw a card from the deck, a higher card wins. And on a tie, I think the one who initiated the trade wins. Now, if you trade with another player, again I use a house rule, simply because otherwise it would be too simple. I mean, you can easily see who wins. And just to make things more interesting a little bit, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to play that card, or a card that I want to play from my hand, and then I draw for each one 2 cards from the deck. And I'm gonna add them together and then half their value. So a bit like rolling a 2-sided die, and a 12-sided die, of course. So I'm going to add them together, half the value, and then I'm going to add this to the card that I've played. In this way, it's not that predictable, and I find it simply more interesting. Okay, so the Sumerians, they are going to play that card here. A strong 6. And now let's see, the other ones would be the Free State. Well, they could also play a 6. On the other hand, the 6 is a blowback. It's interesting. The blowback is a pretty cool card. Play any time an event card is played. You control the play of that event, provided a target is available. So, I'm not sure if I want to do that. I could also play the Woods Americans, throw them away. I think I want to do that. The blowback is a pretty strong card, so I think I'm going to throw away the Woods Americans instead. It's only a 3. I probably will lose that deal, which is kind of a problem because the Sumerian guy is already that strong. Okay, so in the interests of us all, I'm going to play this. Try to slow the gray player down a little bit. Okay, and now we're going to see who wins that. We start with the gray player, the Sumerians. Well, that's a pretty bad start for them. That's only a 1. Oh boy, and that's a 0. So that means overall they have a value of 7. Plus a 1 trade, so they have a value of 8, which completely sucks. And the Free State, that's also not that great. That's a 2. But that's a 4. So that would be a 6. And half of that is a 9. So that means now the Sumerians have an 8. The Free State has a 9. So the Free State actually wins that trade. And it also means that now the card, this card, goes to the Free State, and the other card goes to the Sumerians, and the others are simply discarded. And that now means that the Free State actually is allowed to get one more progress. And then in addition, because the Free State is lower on the progress level, they can move on an additional space here. If they would have initiated the trade, they could have even moved on a 3rd space, but that's not the case here. So that gave them a little technological boost here, and the Sumerians of course, are pissed. They're still not the first in technology now, and the action was basically a waste. But they were very unlucky when they drew these cards. Okay. So that's the end of the trade and progress action, and now we come to the maneuver actions. And we see the Free State do a maneuver action now. And now he can actually move here. There's a lot of room here, a lot of space. But on the other hand, they got to take care here of these guys. So what they're going to do is they're going to move here into the Ukraine. And possibly in the Pripyat marshes here. And I think this is it then. Yeah, I guess that's fine. There is a defense modifier here in the woods. We'll see about that. Okay. And that was actually no, there is another maneuver action here from the Minoans. So let's see what they're going to do. Well, I'm pretty sure they moved to the Eastern Mediterranean. What is their goal actually? They want to be biggest in the world, or well, basically on sea spaces they want to be biggest. So that means, yeah, they're going to move here and to the Central Mediterranean. And that actually makes them biggest on sea spaces. That's a problem. That means the gray player again will receive quite a few points now. Okay. And then we come to the destiny action. And we see a destiny action done by the Egyptians, and that's it then. So last thing we see is a civilized action by the Chu over here in China. And let's see, can they play any event cards? Any interesting things they can play? Copper mine, why not? That sounds good. So you can play that, gives them $10. On the other hand, that might be also a... No, I think they want to keep that card. Maybe that's an empire they could play. So I guess they're going to keep this card for now. And what about the Temple of Diana? Is it already on the board? Well, no it isn't. I think it was destroyed. I think it was first in Persia. So I think they're going to play that one. They're going to play the Temple of Diana. And I think it's something about disorder. I'm not absolutely positive about it, but I'm pretty sure. So this thing here. And let's play that right there. Or maybe better even here. Okay. And that then gives the pink player a glory point. then they might promote a leader, and they can have 2 leaders. So they can make 2 picks. That's the first one. Okay, that's a builder and an explorer. And this is actually cool. The builder is pretty amazing. So I think what I will do is I will place the builder here. Okay. And that means then that I could also, I think I'm going to place the builder actually here. Okay. And then we can urbanize. And that's now pretty cool because the builder can now improve that city for free on level 3, because he can improve it. Usually he could not improve the city because he's just an H1, but it's a special ability of the builder to improve the city to a higher level if that level would be available in the next age. So that means you can improve that city to level 3, and then we can build our normal cities. So we can build 2 cities in, let's take these East Asian style cities here. We can build 2 cities in fertile areas. That's the first one. And the second one goes then here. Cool. That's definitely good. And that is then the end of the civilize action of the Chu. And that is also, there is no discard empires, so that's basically the end of the turn. We're going to see the progress marker moving. By the way, because I came up with this house rule that a wild card doesn't mean you stay in the space, that means that the Egyptians moved on instead of staying there, and I corrected that. Because on the last turn, according to the official rules, they would have stayed there. But that's not the case now, if you follow my rules. Okay, here we are. Fine. Okay, I want to do the glory phase with you because for some reason, actually it's a pretty interesting thing. The Sumerians, who were that amazingly glorious just a few turns ago, actually 2 turns ago, they generated 6 glory points. They only control now their hometown. They're no longer big in Asia. They're no longer beneath the 2 most successful or most advanced empires in the world, and they also don't control enough wheat because the Chu control 3 wheat. So that means the Sumerians only generate 1 point. That sucks. And they've lost their artist. So yeah, that's really a problem for them now. The Assyrians, they're also pretty bad. They also only generate their home space, and that is 1 point. The Minoans, they are doing better. They are definitely doing better. Okay, well, they control their home area. They have the most, they control the most sea spaces in the world, which gives them 2 points, and they have the biggest fleet. Is that so? Yeah, they do have the biggest fleet. No, that's actually not true. Because the first player is the Chu. I should have started with the Chu in this case, but whatever. The first player is the Chu. So these are the last ones. The Minoans are the last ones. So that means the Irish fleet, which has the same number of ships as the Minoans' fleet, is counted as bigger. So they have only the second biggest fleet, but that gives them still 1 point for the fleet. So overall, this empire gains 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is pretty amazing. And, well, you know, the great player, he might start to consider letting these empires go. If there is something else he can start in the close future. Right now he doesn't have anything, but I think the really good times for the Sumerians and the Assyrians seem kind of over. It's tough to say that, but it looks pretty much like it. It might be an option to say, okay, we let the Sumerians maybe go and then leave that very fertile space here to the Assyrians, so they might actually generate a few more points. But these are all things we can think about later. We might also think about, I mean, if we manage to do a successful trade with the Sumerians, and then we actually could think about being the most progressed empire again, and then they would be pretty cool. Many things to consider here. The Chu are amazing. The Chu, are they the biggest in the world? They control 6 areas. The Romans control also 6 areas, but because the Chu are first player, they still are the biggest in the world, and that gives them 4 glory points. Home country, China, Asia, and the world. That is pretty amazing for the pink player. Sadly, he only controls this single empire. The Egyptians. Okay, they control their hometown. They're number 1 in Africa. As you can see, because there is simply no one else there. They're definitely not among the biggest empires in the world, but they control 2 artifacts. These guys also control 2 artifacts, but because the turn order is first with the Egyptians, that means they have the most, so that gives them 1, 2, and again 2 points. So they gain 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty awesome. So the Egyptians and the Chu are right now the most successful. The Phoenicians, well, they pretty much suck. They only have their home country. And the Polynesians, they don't get any points. Okay. What about the red player? Well, it's definitely time for him to catch up a little bit, but it's looking good. And then also the green player. I think things are getting closer now a little bit. The red player, well, he controls that free state. He's got 4 spaces here, and he wants to be among the 3 biggest factions in the world. So let's see, we got these guys, the Chu, we got the Romans, and now they are in a direct competition with the Celts. But because the Celts are behind them in the turn order, that means the Free State would be actually the 3rd biggest empire in the world, so that gives them 1 glory point. Well, it's not that amazing. But they also have the Romans, and they control their home area, and they are biggest in Europe. So that means 4 points for them. 1, 2, 3, 4. It wasn't too bad. The Celts. Okay, they want to be big in Europe. Let's see. Well, actually, they are only the third power in Europe. Number 1, the Romans. Number 2, the Free State. And, well, actually, I'm not allowed to count that disorder. So they definitely are only the third power in Europe. And even that is close, because the Minoans control also 3 areas, but because they have this disorder marker here too, their home country doesn't count as a controlled area in this case. So that means they are third, and that gives them 1 point then. And the Irish, well, they control their home country and they're number 1 in Britain, because there is only one empire there, so that gives the Irish 2 points. Okay, so they are now the same space, green and red on the same space, and it's a close race between the pink and the yellow one. Gray is still pretty much ahead, but the others are catching up, at least a little bit. Okay, this is it, the end of that turn. Well, now you can see the board gets, especially this Eastern, Southern European, and also here in the Middle East, this region here gets now really filled with chits. There's a lot going on there now, and that's definitely pretty interesting. The Chinese are also strong, the Chu culture, and that was a bit of a strange start, but they still have a lot of money, so in the next turn these guys can also grow and become a little more powerful. Okay, so that's the end of that turn. Hope to see you in my next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Until then, bye.